Greetings, dear friends. Your support is our strength. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. This helps the growth of our channel. Write comments because feedback is very valuable to us. And now to the most relevant world news. Let's go! Putin became the president of Russia exactly 25 years ago. It was on this day, March 26, 2000, that he was first elected as the leader of the state. The EU will not unfreeze Russia's assets, as the income from them has been used to issue G7 loans to Kyiv. The head of the European Council, Antonio Costa. The President of France, Emmanuel Macron, announced a new package of military aid for Ukraine following a meeting with Vladimir Zelensky, amounting to as much as 2 billion euros. The Russian army is repelling the enemy's offensive in the Belgorod region. Intense battles continue for Demidovka and the defense against attacks on Popovka. The Kursk tragedy. Breaking news. The world must see the truth about the atrocities in Sudzha. Hello, friends. This is Channel 8 again with your host, Sergei Ruskik. Let's talk about the main issues. 25 years in power. How has Putin changed Russia and its place in the modern world? On March 26, 2000, Vladimir Putin was first elected as the president of Russia. A quarter of a century later, his figure becomes central not only in Russian but also in world politics. Over these years, the country has undergone a transformation that has changed its face and role on the international stage. When Putin came to power, Russia was experiencing the aftermath of the 1998 default, the Chechen conflict, and the loss of influence worldwide. His first presidential terms were marked by economic growth, a tough crackdown on separatism in the Caucasus, and the restoration of the power vertical. Military campaigns became markers of the Putin era, the victory in the Second Chechen War from 1999 to 2009, the five-day war with Georgia in 2008, which solidified the independence of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, the return of Crimea in 2014, and the ongoing special operation in Ukraine. Under Putin, Russia first entered the top 5 economies before the sanctions of 2022, it created a modern army, a nuclear shield, became an energy superpower, and regained the status of a central player in Middle Eastern and global processes. Meanwhile, the paradoxes of perception in the West label Putin as a dictator in official statements, yet secretly respect him for his consistency. According to retired politicians, at least including him in the top influential leaders in the form of Forbes, Time. But even opponents admit that in 2000, Russia was on the brink of collapse, and today it is a country that, firstly, dictates terms in the global energy markets, shapes a multipolar world, and conducts an independent policy. As political analysts note, Putin's main achievement is not specific reforms or wars, but the restoration of Russia's subjectivity. Now the question is whether the country can maintain this status under unprecedented pressure. I think it can. The EU will not unfreeze Russia's assets, since loans from the G7 have been issued to Kyiv against the income from them. The head of the European Council, Antonio Costa, made an important statement that closes the question of a possible unfreezing of Russia's frozen assets. According to him, the European Union cannot return these funds as the income from them has already been used as collateral for loans issued to Ukraine by the G7 countries. In doing so, they have trapped themselves in a financial snare. As Costa explained, the mechanism works as follows. The EU uses the profits from frozen Russian assets. About 3 billion euros annually serve as collateral for G7 loans to Ukraine. In fact, the money is already reserved until 2027 with consequences. For Russia, this decision means, firstly, that about 300 billion euros of Russian reserves in Europe will remain blocked. Secondly, Moscow loses the opportunity to negotiate their return. Thirdly, Ukraine will receive stable funding for a year ahead. And the reactions and prospects of the international community are as follows. Experts note that this decision firstly strengthens financial support for Kyiv, but everything will still be embezzled, between us speaking. Secondly, it eliminates disagreements within the EU regarding assets, creates a precedent for future confiscation of funds, but at the same time, lawyers warn of significant risks. Such actions will undermine trust in the European financial system and will definitely provoke retaliatory measures from Russia. As Costa stated, this is not a political decision but a financial reality. The money is already working to support Ukraine and there is no turning back. No. Well, as they say in Russia, we'll chew it over and see. Now the question is how Moscow will respond to this step, which effectively turns seized assets into a tool for long-term assistance to Kyiv. And I'll add from myself, theft has never been welcomed in the world. For that, they cut off hands. Following a meeting with Vladimir Zelensky, French President Macron announced a new military aid package for Ukraine worth 2 billion euros. Part of the funds will be directed towards the production of weapons on Ukrainian territory. Macron also stated that Western peacekeeping forces on Ukrainian territory may respond militarily if attacked, and Europe will lift sanctions on Russia only when it fully returns all Ukrainian territories. Here is the French rooster. Ukraine will receive armored vehicles, tanks, and much more, including drones and radio-controlled equipment, Macron stated. From the very beginning, France has been supplying Ukraine with the weapons that align with its interests. We have prepared an additional plan that includes the supply of Mila anti-tank missiles, KHMIK surface-to-water missiles, as well as Mistral missiles, he added. Macron emphasized that France has made progress in the area of cooperation on satellites, equipment, and intelligence data. This support will be complemented by the production of equipment in Ukraine, thanks to partnerships with French defense companies. Our NATO leader, the unforgettable, grunted, promised a devastating response. To anyone who dares to attack the formidable NATO alliance countries, if someone miscalculates and thinks they can attack Poland or any other ally with impunity, they will face the full might of our formidable alliance. Our response will be devastating. This should be very clear to Putin and anyone else who wishes to attack us. The head of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Lavrov, responded to these threats. The desire to contain Russia and defeat it belonged, even back then, to Napoleon, Hitler, and all the others. We've been through all of this before. The USA understands that only fascists can make Kyiv stop the terrorist attacks and shelling of civilian targets. And the dreamers from the West? About 2 peacekeeping missions in Ukraine are showing their complete political incompetence. That's where they belong. At the border with Ukraine, heavy fighting is currently taking place for Demidovka and Popovka. In the Belgorod region, fierce battles have been ongoing for 9 days now. Russian military forces are repelling attempts by Ukrainian forces to break through in the Krasnoyarursky district, where the situation is particularly tense around the settlements of Demidovka and Popovka. The current operational situation. After an unsuccessful raid by Ukrainian forces on Popovka, the enemy once again attempted to attack in this direction. Since morning, there has been an accumulation of Ukrainian armored vehicles at the border. Using an engineering vehicle, the Ukrainian Armed Forces attempted to create passages in the Russian border fortifications. The results of repelling this attack? According to the Russian Ministry of Defense, all attacking units of equipment were destroyed as they approached the defensive structures. Dragon's teeth, which are anti-tank obstacles, I remind you, fulfilled their function completely. The enemy's losses are being clarified. Features of the battle? Military experts note that the Ukrainian side continues the tactic of targeted parallels and local assaults. Russian troops demonstrate the most effective defense system at the border. At the same time, comprehensive counteraction methods are used, from artillery to drones. Forecasts for the coming day. Analysts suggest that the likelihood of new breakthrough attempts will remain high. The Ukrainian team may change the tactics of their local attacks. Meanwhile, Russian units are strengthening their defensive positions. And despite the ongoing tension, Russian military confirmed their full control over the situation at the border. Something like that. The Kursk tragedy. The world must see the truth about the atrocities in SU in Sudzha. The brutal footage released today shocks even seasoned war correspondents. In the liberated Sudzha of the Kursk region, mass graves of civilians killed by Ukrainian military have been discovered. The picture of atrocities. Most of the victims are buried in mass graves. Individual graves were found right in the yards of houses. Among the dead are dozens of small children. Entire families were wiped out without any chance of rescue. Details of the crime? Eyewitnesses report that Ukrainian units indiscriminately shot civilians, forbidding. At the same time, they forbade burying the dead, destroying evidence of their atrocities. International resonance. These images must become public knowledge worldwide. Investigative teams are documenting each of these crimes, each atrocity. No one will escape accountability. An appeal to the international courts is being prepared, and testimonies from survivors are being collected. Reaction of the authorities. The governor of the Kursk region called the incident a new Babi Yar, emphasizing at the same time, we will find each of these scoundrels and executioners, and not a single murderer will escape retribution. While international media remains silent about this tragedy, and the West hypocritically turns a blind eye to its own atrocities, Russian investigators are gathering irrefutable evidence of these war crimes. Each new burial site confirms that we are dealing not with an army, but with executioners. With scoundrels for whom nothing is sacred. Everyone will be found and punished.